When Department of Justice lawyers break down in tears and beg to be sent to federal detention so they can get some shut-eye, and at the same time admit that ICE, their client, is violating court orders and they can't do anything about it. You know, things in Minnesota and around the country have gone to hell in a handbasket at the direction of Donald Trump and his corrupt Department of Justice. And no, more Pam Bondi in Minnesota is not making things better. It's making things, Gaines said, worse. We're going to talk about what's happening with the Department of Justice, why a Department of Justice attorney broke down in tears today in federal court, what it means. Is that the canary in the coal mine for what is happening? And then, as long as we're on ice and how to apply heat to melt it, let's talk about with the Democrats. And yes, I would say, by the way, I don't want people coming to the intersection with Michael Popok, if I didn't do the introduction, and saying Popok never shows the clips of Republican elected officials standing up for the constitutional and civil rights and liberties of Americans. You know why? Because there aren't any. I would love to show them. My producers would love to find them. I assure you, I would do it, but there aren't any. And so when I say the Democrats are the ones that are holding the oversight committee hearings today, and we have reporting from the halls of Congress, I mean, it's the Democrats. It's the Judiciary Committee. It's bringing in Renee Good's brothers to testify. 3 or 4 other people who have been shot or maimed or wounded or threatened by ICE. It's not just Renee Good and Alex Pretty. That's bad enough. There are 40 or 50 other people who no longer exist. They are unalived. Is that the phrase? At the hands of ICE in detention or on the streets of America. So we're going to talk about the Oversight Committee hearings, what's happening in the courtrooms, what's happening with the federal judges who are under siege themselves in Minnesota. You think the 2,000 insurrectionists that attacked the Capitol, you think that backlogged and backed up on the district courts in D.C.? They have a lot of judges. They could handle it. Minnesota federal judges, there's not that many of them. And every time we watch and talk about Operation Metro Surge, remember at the end of that spear by ICE and by Donald Trump and Border Patrol are hundreds, thousands of people who are now in the criminal justice system, in the immigration system, through writs of habeas corpus petitions that have to end up in front of federal judges. And what do you think federal judges are doing? They're throwing up their hands and saying, like Judge Schultz, the chief judge of the Minnesota district courts, he threw up his hands and said, well, he didn't throw up his hands. He's about to throw the book. He said, in the last month, in January alone, ICE violated at least 100 orders throughout the district related to habeas corpus and other things. And he said, if it happens one more time, and it's already happened, if it happens one more time, he's going to hold Todd Lyons in contempt, the head of ICE. Todd Lyons also the subject of a new resolution and bill by the House Democrats and the Democratic senators, to have him rescind the May 2025 secret, now not so secret memo revealed by 2 whistleblowers, in which Todd Lyons, here's the visual, folks, took the U.S. Constitution and the 4th Amendment and took a blowtorch to it. Psh, gone. You don't need a federal judge, independent Article 3 judge who's neutral and dispassionate to issue an arrest warrant to burst through your house, your front door, maybe while I'm on live here on the intersection. Oh, no. A Trump immigration judge and a piece of paper stamped by a Trump judge, handed to a Trump agent, executed by a Trump official. That's all you need in Trump world, unless the Democrats have their way, calling light to it, and public interest groups like Democracy Forward, American Civil Liberties Union, and the rest run into court to get that memo rescinded. And we'll talk about that. I want to talk about Epstein files, the files that exist, the files that don't exist, the files that haven't yet been produced, files that need to be the subject of another Epstein Transparency Act, if you can believe it. There needs to be one not just about the FBI and the Department of Justice documents. There need to be ones about the Treasury Department documents, the Internal Revenue Service documents, and new reporting about connect the dots. Get your big board, everybody. Get your big Homeland board with your red strings because we're going to connect the dots to Epstein, to Putin, to the child sex trafficking ring, to money, to Robert Maxwell, the father of Ghislaine Maxwell, and then Donald Trump and Russian money and Russian money and Russian money. And we'll do all that because it's all out there. Old allegations resurfacing, new allegations being made, all coming out of the Epstein files, while the victims and their survivors, and as people know, I represent one, Lisa Phillips, are going to federal court tomorrow because in the 3 million document data dump, which is either 1/2 or 1/10 of what exists just in the Department of Justice, just in the FBI, they outed and doxed and re-traumatized more than 500 victims. They said they were taking their time because they had to get victims' names and photos and videos out. Yeah, they are out. They're out in the public. And now Judge Berman, I don't know what he's going to do about it, but we'll talk about it. 2 major hearings tomorrow we're going to talk about today. One in front of Judge Hellerstein about whether Donald Trump's going to be able to drag his state criminal conviction, 34 counts related to hush money cover-up and Stormy Daniels and related to Michael Cohen and his sentencing, drag it over to federal court or not. Yeah, back in the news, back in front of 94-year-old senior federal judge Hellerstein. That's tomorrow. The Epstein hearing tomorrow. So I want to bring you all up to speed on that. And then I'm going to have 2 special guests tonight. Yes, it's a twofer here on The Intersection. I'm going to start with Bob Simon, civil rights lawyer, plaintiff's lawyer extraordinaire, representing people who have had, let's just put it this way, negative interactions with ICE, shot, maimed. And he and other lawyers like him and people that are affiliated with the Popok firm are representing these people, these human beings who are being attacked by other human beings, many of them U.S. citizen on U.S. citizen, in the new civil war that Donald Trump has promoted. And Bob was a reporter for us today because he was down in the halls of Congress. He was at the oversight hearings. He was in all the rooms. And now he's going to come and join us and talk about these hearings today to hold ICE, the Trump administration, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, Greg Bovino, you name it, accountable. That's what our checks and balance system is supposed to be all about. I got a couple of updates about hearings or new matters in front of Jeb Boasberg that matter, the chief judge in D.C., and all of the rest. Now that I'm slightly out of breath from that introduction, that was a very Ben Meiselas-like introduction, right? You're on The Intersection. It's the podcast where I like ride solo, except when I have guests. I'll tell you about the second one in a minute. Here on the Midas Touch Network, okay? Midas is this close to 6 million subscribers. I think the Legal AF audience and the Intersection audience had a little something to say about that. And so I want you to try to get them over that hump to 6 million. So at the same time, in about a year's time, we got 1 million and moving and plus over on Legal AF YouTube, another place where you can support independent commentary and journalism and protect what we do with you and for you. Our second guest tonight is going to be Skye Perryman, founder of Democracy Forward. She and her organization just got an amazing new ruling from Judge Gia Cobb that puts, again, House Democrats back in the game to provide oversight at ICE facilities, having been sidelined and boxed out by Kristi Noem with a memo from January that said, oh, it doesn't matter what's happening down at ICE. You got to give us 7 days notice. Place could be on fire. Give us 7 days notice. Yeah, F that. We'll talk about that and talk maybe not in that colorful way, but we'll talk it over with Skye Perryman. And then we got our special treat, which is all of you. And if you leave questions in the comment section tonight, my team, it's one person, my team will capture, my team named Alan will capture the questions and post them for me in a chat screen that I have running over here. And I, at the appropriate times, will try to answer those questions. So that's how we can be interactive here on The Intersection. Really appreciate all sort of kidding aside. Really appreciate you all being here. Let's just check in on our audience. Yeah, we got Very, very nice beginning here on the intersection. Appreciate each and all of you. You know we're live because I'm watching me. There I am. There you are. And again, leave your questions and comments in the chat. We will grab them. All right, let's start with Epstein. I also have to be mindful. I got guests coming on. And here we go related to that. So let's start with the Epstein files. First, we got a hearing tomorrow led by the survivors and victims in front of Judge Berman, who, along with Judge Engelmeyer, said he was going to oversee the protection of victims' identity. And then at the same breath, these federal judges say with a straight face, I don't have the jurisdiction to do anything about it. Even Judge Berman about the hearing tomorrow is like, you can all come down to my courtroom. I'm not sure I can do much. I'm like, you're a federal judge. You know, you got the Trump administration. You're either being used as a shill or a pawn or as cover by the Trump administration. See, federal judge oversight, but you're not providing oversight. Provide the oversight. Protect the survivors and the victims. And the big problem is, as one of the lawyers down in Florida that represents a lot of the victims said to the court in a filing, there's more than 500 victims that have had their names, identity, photos, or all of it outed by the federal government. And the best they can do in their letter back to the judges, like oops, we got an 800 number. We've got a website. They can tell us after the fact. Right. After the milk is spilled and after the cow leaves the barn, fill in the blank with all your other metaphors, you will fix it. Well, they will fix it. No, you fix it before you know whaters. Jesus. So we'll see what Judge Berman's going to do, but the survivors have to do what they're doing, which is continue to lead from the front and with courage. I got some great news too, folks. Just happened today. I mean, we've been working on it behind the scenes for quite some time, but I'll break some news here on the intersection. The Popok firm and Legal AF is joining forces with a group called Survivor Strategies out of California, led by former State Senator Joe Dunn and Sam Maloney, involving Lisa Phillips also in the collaboration to represent survivors of child and adult sex abuse. We'll be announcing that very, very soon, but we got everything done related to it. Been working behind the scenes with them, and that'll be a national practice, a national focus. Because this is what we have to do. There's just some things, you just look at them, you look at the opportunity to do good, and you say, yeah, where do I sign? How do I get started? And this is something that's really near and dear to my heart, and working closely with Sam Maloney, who's a survivor herself from the music industry, Joe Dunn, who's worked tirelessly on behalf of sex assault and sex abuse victims and survivors almost his entire career, and has this organization. This won't just be legal services, but that's important. It'll also have psychological counseling and emotional counseling and lobbying efforts to change the laws, to open the windows, to allow these people to sue the people that were their predators. And so we're involved with that. Second half of the Epstein report is what we're finding from the totally insufficient Epstein files. Now, let me frame something for you that doesn't get enough press. The Epstein files, as ordered to be released by Congress, are just the Department of Justice and FBI. That's it. I'm not saying that's right, but it's not the all of the executive branch. We've always said, you want banking records? You want the money flow? You want to follow the money? Treasury Department records. Internal Revenue Service, which is part of the Treasury Department, records. Postal Service records. So the Transparency Act always should have been broader. And it can be amended. They'll bring a new bill. They're working on it right now, which would be every document which relates to Epstein, Donald Trump and Epstein and the rest. Money flow, the Russians, maybe, and that's housed in the executive branch. That's the way to settle that. And what we're finding from deep dives, Daily Mail just did a deep dive, as reported by Raw Story, is this: there's over, let me get the number right, over 2,000 references to Putin and Russia in the Epstein files. which, if you piece it together, including emails, it looks like at first blush, okay, that Putin is working for the Kremlin. I'm sorry, we knew that. That Epstein is working for, try it again, that Epstein is working for Putin. And that the child sex trafficking ring and the byproduct of it, like the blackmail, was because that's what Putin wants in order to have compromising information about the rich and powerful ensnared in this predator trap. So, for instance, we now know about former Prince Andrew. But if this reporting is right, Putin has known about Prince Andrew for a long time and all of that incriminating evidence. And then fill in the blank around about the rest. And then the connectivity is Robert Maxwell, the father of Ghislaine Maxwell, who died mysteriously on a boating accident, who also had been who's been linked to espionage, helped funnel money from Putin into Jeffrey Epstein's bank accounts, which would explain how a former middle school math teacher had billions of dollars under advisement in his bank accounts, especially if the money's being laundered through Putin and through real estate transactions, which are very difficult to trace. So if that's happening, then you've got Epstein offering to help Putin in a meeting with Trump to let Putin know how Trump thinks. So intel in color about Trump. Now, at the same time, you've got Trump world is always in bed with the Russians. You've got resurfaced reporting about Don Jr. and Eric Trump saying out loud that they get a lot of funding from the Russians as opposed to American banks, right? Which then explains all of the things that Donald Trump has done, which are hard to fathom for an American president, like hanging the picture of Putin in the White House while he puts the Democratic presidents in the bathroom, or turning a blind eye as Putin continues to kill innocent Ukrainians, even to this moment, like that, claiming that he trusts Putin in all ways, while his intelligence community says that he shouldn't be trusted, in many, many ways, large and small, like taking secret phone calls from Putin. Donald Trump acts like he's an asset of Putin. He may not be, but the people who think that the people in Russia think he's an asset. He certainly acts like a Trojan horse. He's doing everything that Putin, if Putin had a Christmas list, Donald Trump has been executing that Christmas list exquisitely since he got back into office. Attack NATO, the European Union, and the United Nations, all sworn enemies of Putin. Check. Undermine them. Put Americans at each other's throat. Used armed forces, the military, National Guard, and federal security forces against other Americans as a prelude to a possible second civil war, and destroy our unity and our patriotism as Americans. Check. This is exactly what Putin would have wanted. And maybe this connectivity between Epstein and Maxwell, Putin, the money, Trump, money, Russia, money, all sort of comes together, right? And we'll continue to follow it as we continue to drill down whatever documents have already been produced. When we, I talked about the Hellerstein hearing. Let me just do 1 minute on the Hellerstein hearing. Tomorrow, there's another hearing we'll be following on Legal AF. Donald Trump, once again with new lawyers, Sullivan and Cromwell, negative shout out to the law firm of Sullivan and Cromwell representing Donald Trump. They convinced the Second Circuit Court of Appeals that Judge Hellerstein should go back and look at whether the immunity decision from the United States Supreme Court, like 2.5 years ago, somehow converts the Stormy Daniels hush money business record election interference fraud case. The one that Michael Cohen testified in, where Donald Trump is convicted of 34 felony counts and sentenced. If that should somehow lead to his conviction and his sentencing being overturned because of the immunity decision. Now, 4/5, 5, 6, 7/8 of whatever Donald Trump did, the jury convicted him of, happened before he was president, when he was running for office. That was the point. The cover-up was to not have an October surprise about Stormy Daniels going public with having been in a sex act or whatever it was with Donald Trump while he was running for office against Hillary Clinton. That's why he paid her through Michael Cohen. Okay. The only evidence that came out of trial about the White House is after he got elected, he had to deal with some of the fallout. He had a conversation with Hope Hicks, the press secretary, okay, about the cover-up. So his argument is, see, official duty. I was talking to my press secretary. Converts the whole thing into I have immunity. And the New York, the Manhattan DAs in their papers is like, what are you talking about? If you're talking about private personal conduct, it doesn't get converted into official conduct because you're talking to your press secretary who cried on the stand, right? Or the fact that Michael Cohen visited you in the White House to kind of talk about the payment, the repayment of the money that was owed him doesn't give you immunity. So what they want, the Second Circuit wants Judge Hellerstein to decide, and he's going to use a hearing tomorrow to help him, is whether somehow the immunity decision makes some aspect of the case official conduct to allow Donald Trump to then take the case from state court to federal court, which is what he wants to do, then argue some federal defense, i.e. immunity, and get the whole thing thrown out. I don't see this happening with Judge Hellerstein, but we will report on it. In fact, Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News for Legal AF will be at the courthouse tomorrow, and he's going to pop outside, and we're going to do a live on Legal AF Substack. These are the ways to support everything that we do in this world of intersection, right? You do this. We have a Substack, which we're now number 3 in rising of all U.S. politics devoted Substacks. And I'm running a sale, everybody. 35% off. About 500 people have taken advantage of this already. 35% off annual membership makes it about $6.50 a month. These are the resources we need to keep all things Legal AF in the intersection on the air. We've got the YouTube channel for Legal AF, right? Which is growing by leaps and bounds. We've already crossed the 1 million subscriber barrier. We've got a new paid subscription way for you to also contribute to what we do. 10, 12 videos a day, Legal AF YouTube, right? And then we've got our sponsors who have just recently joined the intersection, because we're only about 8 months old, 7 months old, and we really appreciate them as well. So we're going to take a break from for our sponsor. When we come back, Bob Simon, civil rights plaintiff's lawyer extraordinaire, who is in Congress today, in the hearing room today about the Oversight Committee hearing, is going to join me for a special segment. And then following him, stick around, we got Skye Perryman of Democracy Forward talking about her group's big new victory about ICE oversight by Congress. But now a word from our sponsors. Can we talk about Incogni and your online privacy? I used to get tons of spam calls, and my email, it was flooded with junk. The scariest of those messages were scams, and it was terrifying to see how much they knew about me. Turns out my information is spread all across the internet without me knowing. That's why I've partnered with Incogni. It helps reduce spam and take control of my online privacy by taking away my private data from shady companies. Online data breaches are relentless and rising annually. Anybody could be caught up in one. A breach of our data could put us at risk of scam attempts, identity theft, and just a general lack of privacy online. Our data can be exposed on broker databases, shady directories, search results, and even via AI. Incogni is a service that helps protect you online. It tracks down these shady sites and automatically removes your data without you even having to lift a finger. It allows you to wipe yourself from the internet completely. Incogni automatically tracks down and removes your personal data from multiple sites. It handles any objections. It continuously monitors and ensures your data stays off the market with repeated removal requests. Using the custom removals feature, your data can be removed from any site at your request. Simply send Incogni a link and your dedicated privacy expert will do the rest. I'm truly so impressed with Incogni, and I know you will be too. And best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code TRUTH. That's INCOGNI.com/truth and use the code TRUTH at checkout. Welcome back, and thank you for being here on the intersection on the Midas Touch Network. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple of questions that we're going to bring in Bob Simon. Somebody asked, when do we expect an answer regarding the tariffs? You know, big decisions like this take a minute, because you've got the majority opinion, whatever that's going to be. You got the concurrences and the dissents. They all have to be done at the same time, or at least completed. You know, if there's a dissent that's hanging around, that's the tail wagging the dog. You know, I've seen some speculation that the delay is actually a good thing for Trump, because it means, I don't know what that means. I think there's going to be dissents. I think this is not going to be 9-0. I don't think this is going to be 7-2 or 8-1. I think this is going to be more like 6-3 or 5-4. And therefore, there's going to be dissents and concurrences and that type of thing. So I'm not reading the way some of these people are reading, which is, oh, every day that goes by, the Trump administration, you know, is no, it's like a criminal defendant who thinks the longer the jury's out, that automatically means that it's better for them. It doesn't. So my gut is it won't be February. It'll be more like March or April. I could be wrong, but I think that's where we are with that. And then what about, can the president nationalize voting, from Susan Brooks, 9612? No. He can try. He's been trying to do it with executive orders and change the voting date, change the way mail ballots are counted. But these all get challenged because these are reserved to the states in our system of federalism. Will he try? Absolutely. You know, he's already trying to scare off votes now by threatening to use the National Guard and take over and all of that. But no, he can't. By constitutional restriction, he can't do that. Are we ready? I'll ask my producer. Are we ready for Bob? You want me to stall?
Ready.
No.
Ready.
Oh, all right. Let's turn him around. He looks like he's sideways. There's Bob Simon. Bob, You're new to my audience. Let's get you right side up. Okay, great. Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing well to quite well. You know,
all right. You're on the streets of DC, right?
Yeah, and there's absolute mayhem here. They had to call the National Guard. Wait a minute. No, it's actually very peaceful. We're in Adams, Morgan. I went to undergrad DC. Love it. We're outside of Jack Rose, famous bourbon bar. We're holding a reception after being on the Hill all day.
So, all right. Well, let's get to the hard news here. So we had an oversight committee hearing, a couple of things that are being considered by the Democrats. Mm-hmm. One of them in particular is to have the May 2025 memo from the head of ICE, Todd Lyons, rescinded, which would allow, without a federal Article 3 judge's warrant, to have your door broken down, and with an administrative warrant from a Trump judge, an immigration judge, have you ripped out of your home. So that's something that they're focused on. But then the oversight committee hearing was also about, and there's another bill about making Border Patrol and ICE constitutionally accountable. They're supposed to be constitutionally accountable by way of an oath that they take to uphold the Constitution, right?
You would think. But, you know, we see the lawlessness. I practice out of Los Angeles primarily, and also Arizona. They're just not, they're empowered by what they think is immunity. It's a qualified immunity. And a lot of the stuff today we were talking about with the press conference with Representative Tran, Salinas, and Senator Markley out of Oregon, that they want to build just a single 4 pages, and all it says is that you can be able to hold agents civilly liable for any constitutional violations. And all it sounds so simple because every state can do it, right? And you can do it with your local police departments, but you cannot do it with federal agents. They hide behind the guise. They do not have complete immunity, so it's very clear. And then there were several victims of, you know, citizens that were doing nothing wrong that were brutalized, and we saw the same the partisan politics and propaganda that came out. They would just immediately say if something happened, they were domestic terrorists, and they would go all, you know, witness victim blaming rather than actually finding or investigate the truth. And you see the same repeatable pattern. So at the oversight committee hearing, a lot of the survivors went and testified, including they had the brothers of Renee Good, and it was honestly incredibly powerful to hear them talk about it and how they're an American family where they have people from all walks of religion, political affiliations, but they all get along, how beautiful of a soul she was. And how
I'm going to bring in the clips there, Bob.
Yeah.
Why don't we show some of the things you were in the room for, then you can respond to it. Let's bring in Renee Good's brothers.
My name is Brent Ganger, and I'd like to share some thoughts from the eulogy that I gave on my sister's behalf this past Saturday. When I think of Renee, I think of dandelions and sunlight. Dandelions don't ask permission to grow. They push through cracks in the sidewalk, through hard soil, through places where you don't expect beauty, and suddenly there they are, bright, alive. Unapologetically hopeful. That was Renee. And sunlight, warm, steady, life-giving, because when she walked in a room, things felt lighter, even on cloudy days.
Thank you, Ranking Member Blumenthal and Ranking Member Garcia, and distinguished members of Congress. My name is Luke Ganger, and I'm here with my brother Brent. Renee Good is our sister. We're here on behalf of Nay's big family and those who loved her. We're here to ask for your help. I was talking to my 4-year-old last week when she noticed I was not doing well. I had to come here today and talk to some important people. She knows that her aunt died and that somebody caused it to happen. She told me that there are no bad people and that everyone makes mistakes. She has Nay's spirit. The deep distress our family feels because of Nay's loss is in such a violent and unnecessary way is complicated by feelings of disbelief, distress, and desperation for change. In the last few weeks, our family took some consolation, thinking that perhaps Nay's death would bring about change in our country, and it has not.
Yeah, and then if you were in the room for that, Bob?
Absolutely, and I represent one of the survivors that came on later, and they shared a very special moment behind closed doors where those two, it was extremely powerful. And I just want to say one thing, everybody that was there was extremely empathetic, and this is the first hearing I've been in front of, and it was Representative Stansbury. She came, gave them hugs, she was tearing up with them. It was emotional because it was real, and these are real people that are really harmed, asking for simple things like we want accountability and transparency, and to see all those people come together from all across the country experiencing the exact same thing of, as soon as something happens, we're not at fault, they're domestic terrorists, they're going to put up propaganda and just hope the American public falls for it until you get up all the evidence and do an investigation, then things change. But there was extremely impactful testimony from all of the survivors. I would take the time to watch and listen to it because they need to have every single Republican see this, because you have to have a bipartisan change. You have to get rid of qualified immunity, and this is what they kept talking about. Every single person there, you got to get rid of qualified immunity and have some sort of accountability. That was a whole thing of if I had one mantra of the day, it was the way to have this stop is let these agents know they do not have complete authority to do whatever they want. They need to have checked on their power, and it's the law. If you can do that and say that they can be held civilly liable, and there was a bill that we were talking with the 3 representatives I said at the beginning, that's how you create change. Until you do that, and another attorney, Romanucci, who I think you probably know, he was there testifying, and he's awesome, and he said the exact same thing. He said, unless we make a legislative change, this is all just talk. We had an opportunity to do it after George Floyd. It did not happen. We're here again. You have to be able to, like you can with any state officer that does something wrong, if you violate somebody's constitutional rights, you should be able to hold them accountable. If you can't, you see lawlessness. That's it.
We have the Oversight Committee hearing up on Legal AF YouTube. We had it live today. It's up there as a video. I do encourage people to watch it. Jasmine Crockett spoke for America. Let's show a clip of Jasmine Crockett today at the hearing.
I don't understand why and where my colleagues are going on everything else. And now they want to be the protectors of girls and women. I didn't hear them screaming this when Renee Good was killed in the middle of the street in Minneapolis. I didn't hear any protection for Renee Good, a U.S. citizen that was killed by the same people that the vast majority of you just voted to give more money to. I didn't hear the same thing. In fact, it was a lot of crickets, specifically including the women, as we were just lectured about what we need to do as women when it came down to the Epstein files. I heard crickets. In fact, we could not get any signatures onto that discharge petition, to the extent that we shut down the entire House, and there was no business that was conducted in this entire country on behalf of our constituents. But let me be clear, the Republicans are going to protect girls and women, because that's what this is all about. It's not about the report, because the amendment says it's about a report. Like, miss me on being protectors. Just say that this is what you believe, this is what you're doing. But don't come at us and tell us as women what we should be okay with, what we shouldn't be okay with, because it's just kind of like the same thing where I should be telling a lot of women on the other side of the aisle, I don't know how it is that you are not protecting women as they need protections over their own bodies to make their own decisions.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the reasons that it's so important to have somebody like Bob, who's a civil rights lawyer representing people who are the victim of the predatory nature of the ICE Border Patrol, out of control under Donald Trump. It's important that it's not just the storytelling that we're reading about, or even that I do on the commentary. You've got to be, as you are in the halls of Congress, you've got to be in the streets. If you could communicate to our audience, and you're going to now, one major thing that was a takeaway from today's oversight hearings that they can then take into their own lives and streets and the marketplace of ideas, I'll even give you two. What would it be?
Well, the people are pissed off, and they're rightfully pissed off. And what you need to be able to do is to hold accountability. You got to stand up for the community, whether that's videotaping, whether that's going to the grocery store in an area of town you may not go to, just to be a presence so that it stops. Because they don't do this to white privileged people. They just don't. The other thing you could do is put pressure on your politicians. I do it consistently. Like, I have some of my friends that have got elected to the Hill, crazily, but now they're there. Look, I'm texting them all day. I'm like, what the F are you going to do? And you could do that too. You can call. You can use ChatGPT to write your own bill. They would love for you to write their own bill. But be on social media, be loud, be proud about it, and let people know how you really feel, because the tides have turned and people all feel that this is unjustified, and you can do simple things to be able to change and correct it. So I do believe in the power of the people and the power of social media for good. But yeah, I think we're at a catalyst right now. We gotta do something, and thank God for what you guys are doing. And it was exciting to see good people on the Hill, all with the same message. And it seems like there is a united front. And it was very encouraging on the appropriations bill for funding. There was at least a dozen and a half Republicans that voted no to that.
Who was the half?
I couldn't even look it up, but it was 14. It was 14 or 15. I looked because we were watching as they were counting. But there were Democrats that voted yes. And my question is, why are you giving another 2 weeks to do a negotiation? You're in a position of power right now. Like, put pressure. If those are look it up. If you're in a Democratic jurisdiction and those are one of your leaderships that voted yes, you better give them hell. You better make it public and let them. I would shame them. That's what I would do. I'd shame them. Yeah.
And Bob, thanks for being here. I know you from various things and your leadership in the bar. But I want to introduce our audience here on the intersection on Legal AF to lawyers like you who every day fight for justice, who every day are people ask, who are the lawyers that are representing the downtrodden? right? The human beings that are being chased through the streets and being shot at and maimed and others. And Bob Simon is one of those human beings. So glad you were able to make it on Legal AF. Thanks for stepping out of an event on the streets of Washington,
And
D.C.
remember, I only like ice in my whiskey, not in
I
our
only-
community.
I forgot that T-shirt. Send that to me, will you?
I'll send
All
you
right.
one, all right?
All right,
You like a
appreciate you.
medium, right?
Yes, medium. All right. Bob Simon, from the halls of Congress to the streets of D.C. Thanks for being on Legal AF and Intersection.
Thanks, brother.
Me too. And we are back. Okay. So what we're watching collectively are the various different ways that Americans can fight back and resist against Donald Trump. Look, there's a pent-up demand in this country to vote already. Unfortunately, the way our system works is we only get to it's like a class in school. We get the midterms and the finals. So the midterm is coming up, and it can't come up soon enough for almost everybody, including my staff. But in the meantime, there's lots of work to be done. Sure, we're doing it on this side of the glass, right? We're doing the reporting and the live reporting, and we've got status quo on the streets of Minnesota, and we're bringing on the attorneys generals and the former judges and the lawyers who are in the courtroom and the congresspeople, the representatives and the senators. Yes, that's to educate, that's to unite, so that when you're having your moment on social media, in your WhatsApp chat with your friends and family, on the streets, in the public square, whatever that may be, electronic or otherwise, that you're armed with data, right? That you're armed with information. And now you can use it to communicate with your elected officials or others, right? To attend, go down to Washington. There's things that you can actually attend and then help get us ready, besides in the streets, First Amendment protest, ICE protest, and the rest. You can also get us ready for the midterms. Don't let Trump rent real estate in your head for free. I see a lot of questions about, can he federalize the election? Don't worry about that. Worry about it. But the lawyers got that covered. The Democracy Forwards, the ACLUs, and the attorneys general kind of got that covered. What we need to worry about is what we can impact immediately, which is registration for voting, mail-in voting, absentee voting, getting souls to polls. That's what we have to do. Make sure you're registered. It's sort of like being on a plane. You got to put the mask on your child before whatever it is. You got to register first before you can register other people. So that we get everybody and everything out. So what I want to do, let me just see how I'm doing with my other guest. Let me check with my staff. Is let's cover in the interim. Let's cover a case involving Judge Boasberg, because I think that's very important as well. Judge Boasberg, the chief judge of the district courts of DC. He's also responsible for all the grand jury proceedings, including what happened with Donald Trump and the grand jury proceedings related to that. Okay. So we have a case called JGG, which is and that's 137 men who were disappeared first to El Salvador by the Trump administration under the Alien Enemies Act without due process, and then horse traded by the Trump administration and the El Salvadorans to Venezuela, of all places. Right. We took enemy combatants and sent them back to the country we were at war or about to go to war with. Does that make any sense? No. So we sent them there to get them away from federal jurisdiction and federal oversight. That's why they were sent there. Fortunately for those men, and for us, the ACLU followed those men to Venezuela. And Judge Boasberg, while he's not busy trying to hold the Trump administration and Kristi Noem in contempt, and he's tried that twice, it's been blocked a couple of times by the appellate court, but we're not done yet. He's got the case. And in the case, he ordered that they be provided, those 137 men be provided a route to habeas corpus due process rights from Venezuela or from a third country, or be brought back to the United States. And every time they throw up their hands and say, did we say we were in charge of Venezuela? Who said that? Donald Trump? Marco Rubio? Yeah. We're not really. We're in delicate negotiations with Delcy Rodriguez, the head of Venezuela, and we can't be bothered with these delicate negotiations to raise the plight of 137 men, and so we're not going to. That's what they told the judge. And if you make us, they threatened the judge in the filing from yesterday, in which they said, if you make us, we're going to take you right up on appeal, because they're hoping they get a couple of the Trump judges up there. There's a couple in particular, Rayo and Katsas, that they'd love to get. Now, in the same 24-hour period, that same Judge Boasberg was cleared of any ethical charges brought by the Trump administration. See, he got the case 4 days after, in March of last year, 4 days after he had appeared at a judicial conference presided over by the Chief Judge, Roberts, in which he said that he feared. Think about this crystal ball. Chief Judge Boasberg said he feared that the Trump administration would defy court orders. Shocking. Trump administration didn't like that because they were about to defy a lot of court orders. They just defied 100 in 1 month in Minnesota. It's been thousands since they got in office. So Boasberg was right. Aha. But 4 days later, he got a case in which they defied a court order to ground the planes and not take them to El Salvador. And they said, oh, he prejudged the case. He's totally unethical. Look what he did. Look what he did. And he raised it in front of the Chief Judge of the United States Supreme Court. Oh, he just got cleared by a chief judge of another court who looked at it and said, I don't know what you're talking about. You got an issue with Boasberg, file a motion to disqualify or recuse him. If you don't like the results there, take it up on appeal. There's nothing unethical about anything he did or said. Move on. But this is their strategy, right? Go after the federal judges, file bar complaints, get articles of impeachment against federal judges, middle of the road, moderate, conservative federal judges. They don't like Judge Schultz in Minnesota either. Judge Schultz, the chief judge of all judges in Minnesota. They don't like him. Rock rib, Federalist Society, constitutionalist Judge Schultz. Oh, he and his wife donated $50 to some immigrant rights project a few years ago. Oh, that changes everything. He's a Marxist, leftist, radical. You know, who buys this? Not the American people, based on the polling. Not at all. The polling, if the vote was held today, let's just see how we're doing. Okay, if the vote was held today, then Donald Trump would lose in a landslide. MAGA would lose in a landslide. I mean, right now the predictions are, and we have to make the predictions reality, that the Democrats take, 225 seats. They only need 218. 225 seats or more in the House. You know, open up the impeachment proceedings, ladies and gentlemen. All these oversight hearings we're doing now, they become the real hearings, right? Presided over by Democrats. And then in the Senate, yeah, you need a bunch in the Senate. You need 2/3 of the Senate to remove on an impeachment conviction. May not have that, but who knows? There's such buildup of demand to vote in this country. It's like I'm like itchy over it. But we got to put our energy and our attention and our commitment into things that we can do and make change right now. We talked about some of them tonight. Let me take some questions from the audience here, which I think will be fantastic. We have a question about the Fourth Amendment from Karen Ryan. Does it cover breaking car windows and opening car doors? Absolutely. When they went up to Renee Good and they improperly stopped her, that's a Fourth Amendment violation. It led to her summary execution on the streets of Minneapolis in broad daylight and on video. But that interaction, the moment before Alex Preddy was murdered and riddled with bullets, that's a Fourth Amendment violation, the ultimate Fourth Amendment violation against illegal search and seizure. He was been seized by 5 men who jumped on top of him like a rabid pack of wolves, right? And extinguished his life. That's a Fourth Amendment violation. Door handles, yes. Windows, yes. Your papers also. And it's not just for citizens. Most of the Constitution provides protection for people, a person, not a citizen. The framers didn't say, well, we don't really care what happens to migrants now, do we? If you're in the four corners of the United States, okay, no matter how you got here, even an illegal alien has First Amendment rights. You wouldn't know it by the Trump administration. Let's take another one. Bonita Atwood said, what is stopping all the victims and surviving family members from coming together to file one big, beautiful lawsuit against the federal government for the cover-up and mishandling of the files? I guess that relates to Epstein. Nothing. And there's going to be lawsuits. The next wave of justice is the lawsuits brought by lawyers like Bob Simon, who we just had on, and others representing individuals who have been on the wrong end of the Trump lawless, unconstitutional, civil rights violating, civil liberties violating policies and acts. That's the next wave that we're going to be watching over the next 3 years. Perfect timing for my next guest, Skye Perryman of Democracy Forward.
Hi.
Hi. I was tap dancing a little bit, not because of you, but I am. I was like, what else can I answer? Okay. I'm glad you're here. And where are you? And where are you today?
Well, you normally see me in my office, but I actually got home before 10 o'clock at night. So I'm just at my house. Yeah.
Breaking news. Skye Perryman's home.
I'm home. I mean, so something must have, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully celebrating an amazing, great victory. As I said at the top of the podcast today on The Intersection, a new lawsuit, a new ruling from Judge Gia Cobb obtained by Democracy Forward, Skye Perryman, the founder of it, puts at least 13 Congress people back in the game, back in the saddle for providing oversight over ICE facilities without having to like they're checking into a hotel, give 7 days notice before they arrive, right?
Yeah, this is really important. Democracy Forward, we have a great team that's been litigating this case alongside our co-counsel at American Oversight. You'll remember in December, we won a court order to allow members of Congress to do their legal duties and go into ICE facilities. In the dark of night, unannounced, the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, purported to sort of change the policy to get around the court order. This is a trend we obviously see. And after Renee Good was murdered, members of Congress tried to go to a facility in Minneapolis, and they were with our court order in hand, and they were barred from getting in. And so we quickly went and amended the papers, made an emergency motion, and we were really pleased to get this court order on Monday, yesterday, that is restoring access, including for Representative Morrison, who is the representative of the Minneapolis area and was being blocked by the administration.
And here's where we nerd out on The Intersection and Legal AF. We're going to talk about a Section 527 rider. Did I lose anybody yet? Okay. So the I'm going to do my version, and then of course, Kyle, I'll turn it over to you. When Congress, back in the good old days when there was another Congress, funded Homeland Security, they made sure that no funds from that funding at that time would be used to block members of Congress going down to ICE facilities providing oversight, because wouldn't that be adding insult to injury? Okay. So the way that Kristi Noem, and by the way, if you have a pet, bring it on. We have a lot of pets on The Intersection.
I know, it's all good. Yeah.
It's all good, right. And the way that Kristi Noem twice tried to get around that was by saying, I'm not using the 527 rider money from, no, I'm not using it from that funding. I have another pocket. I'm taking it from, I'm blocking the Congress people with other money, right? Other people's money, the one big beautiful bill money. That's where it's coming from. I haven't gotten around to segregating the funds related to those two things yet. We will one day. Money's fungible, right? All looks alike. But so that's okay, right? I'm going to use Section 527 money. I'll use this other money, this other pile over here. And it just summarized. Judge Giacob took a look at that and said, no, that's not all right.
Yes, and our team did a great job of pulling together additional information. I mean, I guess if we're just dorking out here, including declarations about why there's still this obligation under the other funding. The government did not even contend with that information or that new declaration that was put before the court. And so we're really pleased. I mean, as you know, and we've talked about a lot on this show, but as you know, the administration is viewing what's happening in Minneapolis as an optics problem. It's not actually changing its agenda. It's just mad the American people are seeing what is happening and deeply disapproving of it. And so you have them arresting journalists like Don Lemon. You have them arresting people that just see with their own eyes what's happening, detaining them without their counsel. We're all over that. And then, preventing members of Congress from going into facilities and conducting oversight. All of these things are designed to have people deny what they're seeing with their own eyes, or to prevent people from seeing what is going on. So we really view this victory not just as a victory for Congress's oversight role, our individual clients' oversight role, not just a victory for this continued game that the administration wants to play, where we go in and get a court order and then they want to make us play whack-a-mole to have to go get another court order. I mean, we won on all of those. We feel good about that. But also, this is really about the American people who are having a visceral reaction, rightfully so, to the inhumane and autocratic actions of this administration in Minneapolis. This case is a victory for making sure that we're shining a light and that members of Congress are able to shine a light. And then, of course, there's so many other cases where we're helping people shine a light.
My two favorite parts of Judge Cobb's order, which is up on Legal AF Substack. One, it was my nerding out as a genius move by your lawyers. And then it led to my second favorite, which was the remark about the judge. It starts on page 5. Plaintiffs have presented evidence in the form of testimony by a former Department of Homeland Security and ICE legal and budgeting official. Shout out to your team that found that person.
And let me say really quickly to get that new information. I mean, this is hard for people that lawyer, that, just to sort of have to put all that together under difficult circumstances, for sure.
Yeah. And that person said it would be logistically difficult, if not impossible, for the Homeland Security Office to identify and segregate the expenditures to ensure that only funds from that one big beautiful bill bullshit were used to first promulgate and enforce the January 8 policy. Defendants make no attempt, the judge commented, to disprove the specific factual claims made by the declarant. Right? They had nobody in opposition, and they run the Department of Homeland Security.
They have all of correct. So it shows you why we should have prevailed on both the facts and the law. It also just shows you. I mean, I'm so proud of our team and for moving quickly, for being able to get this information that makes it very plain. Of course, we believe it's been clear since the members of Congress were denied access in the first place after Renee Good was murdered. We believe that there would be ways to, to enforce the prior order. But this is also a really sweet victory, taking the government at what it said, going back in, and the judge finds that we're right on the law and the facts. So and oversight is able to happen.
Yeah. And here's my second favorite, which led from your team having gotten that unrefuted witness who used to work at the Department of Homeland Security. The judge said, perhaps reflecting that difficulty, defendants have not seriously attempted to argue.
Right. So that's the best language. Keep going.
Right. They haven't even argued that DHS and ICE ensured that only these certain funds were used before promulgating and first implementing in policy. Indeed, the language of the no memo anticipates that steps to ensure compliance will occur in the future, admitting that they're not doing it now.
Right.
Wow. Just really terrific. Question from the audience for you, Skye. Dana Colio Cloud asks, if they still refuse entry, right? You got the order. What accountability is there? What can you do about it?
Well, we will move to enforce the order, depending, the court's been very clear, so that could also mean moving for things like contempt. I mean, it depends on sort of how things would unfold. We are, and this is a theme that we talk about a lot. I talk about a lot with Legal AF, but we are good at forcing the government to comply with the court orders we win. It is not easy. It is beyond the pale that we have to, that lawyers could go win court orders and judges could say things, and our own federal government feels like these are suggestions and they don't have to follow the orders. I mean, we should not normalize this. And so I want to make sure I'm saying not, we're not normalizing this, but we are very good. Our team is very good at monitoring compliance at the minute that we think that they're skirting what the court said going in, calling the question. And the judges are very good. You've seen the judges in Minnesota just this last week come out and really call the government out for their lack of fidelity to the court orders and engaging in proactive measures to ensure the government complies. So those are some of the mechanisms we have. Now, of course, there are other things. Lawyers shouldn't be signing papers and making representations to the court that are inaccurate. They have an obligation to advise their clients and to make sure their clients are complying with court orders. And so there's professional discipline that lawyers that continue this trend may face. In the future, some organizations are starting to file those types of complaints. So there's a range of tools that the court has. There's a range of tools that people and that the legal profession has. And I think you will start seeing those being used. The thing that we want folks to know is that we know this trend. We see it all the time in our cases, and we are getting into court and forcing compliance with these orders. And that is protecting people every single day, even if people are not as protected as much as we wish they were. Our ability to force compliance with these court orders is keeping food on people's tables, is protecting people in a number of cases.
Yeah, let me run one last thing by you here. And thank you for joining us here for the live edition of The Intersection. We had this reporting today. I'll put two couple things together. You got in Minnesota, you got the Chief Judge Schultz, who issues an order 4 days ago, who says over 100 orders in the month of January alone in Minnesota district courts have been violated by ICE. And if it happens again, he's going to do something about it. Then today, we have reporting in Minnesota in front of Judge Blackwell that a lawyer who, it turns out, doesn't normally work for the Department of Justice directly, but works as a ICE attorney in immigration court, decided to volunteer to help with the habeas corpus petitions that are inundating the courts of Minnesota, and broke down in tears in front of Judge Blackwell, who said, why is ICE violating my orders in 5 different habeas corpus cases in which the reporter said, she said out loud in court, because this job sucks, the system sucks, and I want you to find me in contempt so you can send me to a detention center so I can get some sleep. What does that, and then also proceeded apparently in court to tell the judge that she cannot get, despite her best efforts, her client ICE to comply with orders.
Well, this is what we're seeing. And I've been watching that reporting too, and hope, I think we'll learn more. But this is, if taken at its word, I mean, this is an attorney for the Department of Justice, for the government that's coming into court, being honest with the judge about what's happening. The federal government is not operating consistent with how it should operate. And lawyers at the Department of Justice and working for the federal government are exhausted because there's very few of them left. I mean, we've had over 70% of the federal programs division at the Department of Justice. That's often the civil branch that defends the administration's conduct in court has left or been fired. We have people on our staff at Democracy Forward. We've got a colleague that was fired by the Department of Justice because he refused to lie to a federal judge in the Abrego Garcia case. This is something that is really rocking the department. In many of our cases, we receive filings that are not well done. again, that have mistakes all over them because of the lack of the lack of attorneys. Over the weekend, the administration was putting on social media, hey, you're an attorney, you want to come work you want to come work for the government. I mean, it's and this is not, and it's really unbelievable. And so this report, if true, I think says a lot of what we're seeing in court every day, what our team sees every day, from people who are just exhausted, can't get what they need from their clients. By the way, have professional obligations that most lawyers are not willing to break, which is why many of them are having to either leave or they're being fired from this administration. I mean, it's really unbelievable. One thing is, we think about this autocratic power grab, and we talk about things like the rule of law, and it's sort of like, does that sound, what is that? How does that really matter to people? The courts have been a major guardrail, even with the shadow docket, even with some setbacks. They have been the most powerful guardrail, and lawyers refusing to lie, lawyers, forcing their clients to have to level with the courts. As much as we wish that would happen more than it's happening, that is happening. And that is a huge guardrail. Judges, these judges, the chief judge in Minnesota, this is not a judge that was appointed by a progressive president, right? I mean, and so, judges that say, actually, we are we are a nation that is supposed to be a nation of laws, not people. And I'm going to fairly apply the law here and require what we're going to require for fidelity to these court orders. We're seeing that across the board with Trump appointed judges, Republican appointed judges, Democratic appointed judges. And so one thing I think when we see these breakdowns is you understand why the administration is coming for the lawyers. They're wanting to threaten judges, because this has been the most effective guardrail the first year. We're now seeing people are also an incredibly effective guardrail. People in the streets, businesses closing, first general strike in 80 years in the United States history. People are saying, we're not going to have this on our watch. But the courts have been saying that too. And I think that's why the president is now engaged, and the administration's engaged in a greater and more accelerated series of threats, whether that is threatening people and journalists and protesters, or whether it is threatening judges and lawyers, because these are the guardrails that that are protecting what we have protected over the past year.
Yeah, and just two last points. The lawyer, you and I see it. I see it in all the filings that we cover. It's the same lawyers over and over again. They couldn't possibly be able to handle these cases from coast to coast in areas like, as you said, that they're not even regularly immigration and federal programs. And these are supposed to be different lawyers in different departments with different expertise and different staff. But when you hollow out and you lose 3 or 4 or 5,000 people and you don't replace them, as you can see from the, hey, you want to work at the Department of Justice, kids, or ICE, or no, nobody wants to. The lawyers that have left, are they, from what you can see, are they landing on their feet at organizations like yours and the attorneys general or the ACLU? Are they landing on their feet?
Many of them are, right? I mean, we are stronger for this. I mean, we have an incredible team. We've always had an incredible team, but there are lawyers that are still committed to working for the American people, don't feel like they can do that at the Department of Justice. We've taken in a number of some of the best attorneys in the country at Democracy Forward. We see this happening at the state AG's offices, at other organizations, like you said, ACLU, others. In addition, some of these attorneys are going to build their own firms. They're building small and mid-sized firms, and they're working on these cases with us. There are other attorneys that have been doing a lot of incredible research to show for the media, for the people, to say, we're going to track every place that DOJ backtracks. So someday there is that accountability. So, I don't have the full numbers of how many attorneys have left and where they are, but we're seeing these attorneys really be able to contribute to the protection of our democracy. What should concern every American is that we have a legal system now where people who can care about our democracy, many of them don't feel like they can have their careers at the Department of Justice. And that's really not been the case before. I mean, there are a number of career attorneys, right? People that work and defend the government, whether it's a Republican government, a Democratic government, a Trump government. And many of them are finding that they can't do that anymore because of the pressures at the Department of Justice to undermine the law, to not follow court orders, to not be candid with the court. And that should really concern everybody.
Yeah, there's a whole crop of people that have to skip going into federal prosecutor practice for this point in their careers, maybe come back to it in 2020, in 2028, we'll see, or 2029, whatever it is. But there, normally there was a path, right, for people that came out of law schools like you're in mine. You'd go spend a couple of years in a big law firm, right. Then maybe a federally clerk, then you go to the U.S. Attorney's Office. No, now it's go to the Manhattan DA. Now it's go to the state, the Attorney General and the state prosecutors.
And it's not just happening with the litigators. I mean, we saw the field agent that was in charge of the FBI office near Georgia, near Fulton County in Georgia, retired from the FBI a week before the warrant was, was executed for this raid on the Fulton County elections office. Again, these are committed civil servants who have done a number of, things throughout their careers, work for a number of, the federal government for under control of a number of presidents that are feeling like they have to leave in this time because of how this administration is trying to politicize, whether it's the Department of Justice, whether it's the FBI, to create a situation where these lawyers or where investigators are made to feel as if they're serving the president's personal interest or personal vendettas. And that's not how justice is done in our country.
Yeah, very, very, very good point. Skye Perryman, Democracy Forward. If you don't know about her organization, we'll put the links down in the notes below. You need to know about it and all the affiliates around that are with Democracy Forward. They're in the courts every day, coast to coast, representing your and my interests, protecting and defending the Constitution, our civil liberties, our civil rights on big, important issues. We really could not defeat the Trump administration and overcome their lawlessness without organizations led like Democracy Forward, led by Skye. Skye, thanks for taking time out and joining the intersection. I'm loving
this new show. Thank you so much. See you anytime. All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Skye Perryman, Democracy Forward. Well, it's a great way to close the show. We've covered a lot, from the Epstein files to ICE and how to melt ICE with Democratic leadership in the House and the Senate. We brought on a lawyer, Bob Simon, who's a civil liberties and civil rights lawyer who represents the individuals who are being abused by the Trump administration in cases like we've just discussed. We brought on Skye Perryman to talk about how on these bigger institutional issues, organizations like Democracy Forward are fighting it out every day in the courts, right? We got to make the bad things that are happening stop, or at least slow them down in time for the midterms to catch up. And people, as I can't tell you how many times I've had a penny for every time one of my guests, especially in the last month or two, has said that we, the people that I'm talking to, the newsmakers, the ones that are in the courtrooms, in the halls of justice, in the halls of Congress, say we can't do it without your audience, without the crowds, without the protests in the streets, without you. And it's just a reminder. They're not just saying that to like yank your chain and compliment you because they're on my show. They're saying it because it's necessary. It's important. We don't have the luxury of being the silent majority. We have to be the noisy majority. We have to be active and participate. This is democracy. Our version is a contact sport. It's a participatory sport, right? It's not to watch. It's to play in. It's to be a part of, in our own way. And here on the intersection, such a fantastic audience that we've built here. And people ask, besides in the comments, how can we support the intersection? Okay, we're up on audio podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, and all. 5-star reviews and comments. You'll see them. I mean, we're a relatively new podcast. The YouTube version is up the charts. We're regularly in the top 50, sometimes the top 20 of all YouTube podcasts because of you. because of your support. And then there's the things in the Legal AF ecosystem that keep us on the air and pay the bills and put a ring fence around our First Amendment right to be heard and your First Amendment right to hear us. And there are ways to do that are, you've got our Substack, Legal AF Substack. If you don't know about Substack, get on it. You'll find something you'll enjoy. Hopefully Legal AF Substack. Number 3 and rising right now of all U.S. politics Substacks, 7 to 8 to 10 pieces a day, 2 lives from me a day, live reporting on Substack. You get a notice, you get a notification, boom, you're on with me. We have 3,000 people at like lunchtime to talk about matters. I'm running a sale, 35% off the annual membership on Substack. And then we've got our YouTube channel, Legal AF YouTube channel, where I've, along with about a dozen contributors, we've got 10, 12 videos a day. And then a paid subscriber level. Just in the last couple of days, I just interviewed an author concerning justice reform when it comes to the criminal justice system. We've got Michael Ludig, Judge Ludig, who's joining us for an interview tomorrow. We've had Senator Blumenthal on recently, Governor Shapiro on in the last week or two, Representative Torres in the last week or two, and the like. Adam Klasfeld tomorrow will be running around, I think, between 2 courtrooms in the Southern District of New York, one with Judge Hellerstein about whether Donald Trump's going to successfully take his state conviction over to federal court to try to get it dismissed ultimately, and what's happening in Judge Berman's chambers about courtroom about the Epstein victims. And we'll get Adam to pop out of the Southern District of New York courthouse and report on that probably on Substack Live. So I'm glad you're all here. Thank you for being such fervent supporters of what we do. And we'll see you on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, of course, Legal AF, the podcast on the Midas Touch Network. So until my next report, shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.